I'm going to introduce John, and take it away, John. You have to unmute, though.
Click the unmute button. Okay, my name is John Frazier. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Glenn, and welcome to everybody. Welcome to our newcomer friends. This is also my first time at the meeting. I was talking to Glenn prior to, and I am here because I had heard Adam speak probably about 15 years ago at a convention, and I was looking forward to hearing him again. And Adam is not here today, so Glenn asked me if I would fill in for him. I hurriedly put on a coat, didn't have time to put on a tie, explained to Glenn that yes, as a representative of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was taught by the old timers that yes, you dress up when you are representing Alcoholics Anonymous. So I did hurriedly put on a coat, and I was also taught by the old timers that when you are speaking representing Alcoholics Anonymous, that you no longer use the language of the gutter, you now use the language of the heart. So that's what I do when I speak representing Alcoholics Anonymous. My sobriety date is May 3rd, 1992. God willing, in a couple months, I will be celebrating 30 years of sobriety. And believe me, I never dreamt, I never thought that would be possible. I remember back in, I think it was 1986, 1987, somewhere around there. I never thought that I never wanted to quit drinking. That was my solution, not my problem. But for some reason during Lent of that year, I decided, I'm going to quit drinking for Lent. So after 2 weeks, I said to myself, 40 days is a long time. I'm not going to, no. I'll just quit for a month. After 3 weeks, I said, a month is a long time. I quit for 3 weeks, that's good enough. And that was the best that I could do on my own. And during that 3 weeks, I was the most miserable SOB that you did not want to be around. I mean, I was dry drunk, I was just so miserable that you didn't want to be anywhere near me at all. And so that's the best I could do. That was self-will run riot, personified. And so alcohol, like I said, was my solution. You see, page 73 of the big book described me to a T. It was, more than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. That was me as a kid. And right up until the time when I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. When I came in, I'm not going to give you this huge drunkalogue. I'm here because I'm an alcoholic. I'm not here because, I like church basements. I'm not here because I like the coffee. I'm not here because I just have time to waste in my life. I drank like you folks. I drank and I drank and I drank. I drank because I liked the effect, as it says in the doctor's opinion. Now, I am going to talk to you folks because there are some new people here, and welcome to you new people. Let me say one thing to you. Stay. I used to date this woman in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm sure she got it from someplace else, but I give her credit because I heard it from her for the first time. If the best thing that you can do on a relapse is make it back into the rooms of AA, if that's the very best thing that can happen to you, why leave? That's the best thing. Below that is, jails and institutions and losing the house, losing the marriage, losing the whatever. If the best thing that can happen to you is making it back into the rooms, stay. So anyway, getting back to page 73, more than most people, the alcoholic leads the double life. Now, I'm not going to say that, we hear about the egomaniac with the inferiority complex. I'm not going to say that I'm any different than anybody else, but I'm more the perfectionist with the inferiority complex. And I had been since I was very young. I had a father who was the perfectionist. He was very, very strict. He was also, he was a prisoner of war during World War II. He was physically and emotionally abusive, and I'm not going to get into that crap. That's not why I'm an alcoholic. However, I grew up thinking there was something wrong with me. You know, he was telling me, John, what's wrong with you? John, what's your problem? John, what are you thinking? And so I grew up thinking that there's something wrong with me. And so I've got this inferiority complex on the inside, but on the outside, I'm going to play the role of perfectionist. I'm going to be the all-star in athletics. I'm going to go to school, and I'm going to be the straight A student because I'm not going to let you see on the outside that there's something wrong with me. But inside, I know there's something wrong with me. And that's the role that I'm playing. But as I'm playing that role, I'm feeling guilty about it. I'm having this fear, knowing that you're going to find out there is something wrong with me. And there's this anxiety that's building and building and building and building. And as I'm doing that, I grew up in upstate New York, and the family had a camp not too far from Cooperstown. You might have heard that. That's where the Baseball Hall of Fame is. Never got there as a kid. And the family would be drinking out on the porch of this camp, and I would play this nice little kid, 8 years old or so. And as they were drinking, I'd take their empty cans out into the kitchen and throw them away. And as soon as I got around the corner, I would take the empty and take a sip out of it. And then open up the new can out of the refrigerator, take a sip out of that, and bring it out to the porch and give it to the adults. Well, this was all great, except every once in a while, I would take that empty, take a sip out of it, and that's the can they were using for the ashtray. And I did, you know, and there's cigarette butts and ashes in there. But I didn't care because I enjoyed the beer. And I would keep doing it until, you know, the parents knew, the adults knew what was going on. And finally they'd say, John, go, get out of here, go play with the kids. But I loved beer from that early age. There was something about it. Just from an early age, I just enjoyed the beer. You know, Mom, every once in a while we'd have ice cream, and Mom would put cream de menthe on top. And every time we had vanilla ice cream, I'd say, hey, Mom, put the cream de menthe on top. Put the cream de menthe on top. And it was me. That's what I like. But because I've got this anxiety inside, I've got this fear inside, I've got this guilt inside. And I didn't even know it at the time, but the alcohol was giving me this sense of ease and comfort that was relieving all of this tension that was building up inside of me. So by the time I'm 15 years old, I'm meeting up with these guys who we could drink together. And I could go out on weekends and just on weekends and drink and enjoy. Because you see, with I'm going out and I'm full of all of these things inside of me. And after one beer, I'm starting to relax a little bit. And after 2 beers, I can start to impart a little bit of my wisdom. And after 3 beers, you know, you guys are pretty darn lucky that I decided to join you. And that's my MO. That's me. And that's what alcohol does for me. You know, I'm starting to get a little bit wiser. I'm starting to feel comfortable. I'm starting to be, oh, wow, this is really great. Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. But this is, you know, I've still got this inferiority complex. I'm still a perfectionist, but alcohol is relieving me of all of this. It is my solution, except for the fact that the straight A student is now becoming the B student, the C student. By the time I'm graduating from high school, I am barely getting by. I get this just based on what my performance in previous years. I've got a scholarship to go to college, but I make it for 2 years, flunk out of college, and I get an all-expense paid vacation to the tropics of South Vietnam, where they have, you know, sunny vacation, sandy beaches, fireworks every night, and miles of hiking trails. And by the time I come back from Vietnam, I am a full-blown alcoholic and drug addict. And I find a woman who has all of the characteristics and traits that I want and need, and that is that she wants me. And that's it. I don't care about anything else. I don't take a hostage. I don't know if she took me as a hostage, but we get married, and we know that, you know, because of my alcoholism and other substance abuse, that marriage doesn't last. And I go into such financial debt because of my addictions and my child support that I need to find another woman who can support me, and that marriage doesn't last. And now I'm paying child support to 2 ex-wives, and I'm still unemployable. So anyway, I'm ready. There's a couple of times when I am so far out of it that I want to blow my brains out. There are times I know what it feels like. I'm 6'3", and my arms are long enough where I know what it feels like to have a 12-gauge shotgun loaded and have that shotgun barrel in my mouth. I know what it feels like. I know what it feels. Now, I'm not, you know, what I'm saying is I know what it feels like emotionally, spiritually, mentally, whatever you want to call it, to feel that low, to hate myself so much that I'm saying to myself, John, life isn't worth it. Pull the trigger. Just end it all. Just do yourself, you know, just do yourself a favor, do everybody else a favor, and just end it. And this has happened a couple times. And finally, on May 2nd, 1992, I'm at that point again. I am drinking vodka. I've lost another job, fired from another job. My second wife is gone. And on May 2nd, 1992, I am drinking vodka until I'm drinking probably over 2 quarts a day, drinking till I pass out, crying like a baby because I hate myself. I hate myself. I've already written a note. And I don't know why I wrote the note, because this is how dumb I am. But my best alcoholic thinking is that I'm going to wrap the car around a tree to make it look like a suicide. That way, maybe somebody can get some insurance money out of the whole deal. But I'm driving down this road in my town. I picked out this old gnarly elm tree, and I'm going to wrap the car around the tree. I'm doing about 70 miles an hour in a 40-mile-an-hour zone. And I used to say that I backed off at the last second. Today I say that God did this for me, that I had a purpose in life. But in my frustration, I went back to where I was living, put my fist through the windshield in my frustration because I was a very angry person. Went back into the house and poured myself a drink. And the next day, she was still my wife at the time, came back to get some of her stuff and said, John, why don't you try alcohol, among other things. She said, John, why don't you try Alcoholics Anonymous? And I said, I don't need AA. I can quit on my own, which I knew was a lie. And she said, maybe you can. But if there is a tool that will help you and make it easier for you to quit, why don't you take advantage of it? And I, who had answers for everything, immediately said to her, because I didn't have an answer. There was no answer. I knew she was right. And I picked up the phone and I called this man in town, who immediately directed me to a meeting. And I went. And I couldn't figure you squirrels out. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, but I couldn't figure you out. I walked into this room and you were all laughing and joking and having a good time. And I'm one day off from a suicide attempt. And I can't even smile, let alone laugh like you were laughing. And I figured maybe you were on drugs or something. But you were telling me that you weren't on drugs, you weren't drinking, you weren't doing anything, and you were happy to be sober. And I couldn't figure that one out. No, it couldn't be. Because you see, I needed alcohol. I needed it. But you were telling me, no, I didn't need it. You had a solution. And I knew two things. I knew, one, that I wanted what you had, and I knew that I didn't want what I had. And I sat down. Of course, I sat in the back row, and I couldn't think. I had no idea what was going on. My head was spinning. I came in off the streets, so I was totally ignorant. I didn't know what alcoholism was. I didn't know what AA was. I didn't know anything about anything. You people are talking to me about, well, finally, that first night, I don't even know what was going on. But finally, when my head started to clear and I heard all of this stuff about, what I heard all this stuff about in the doctor's opinion about having an allergy. I said, what do you mean I have an allergy? I was drinking 2 quarts a day. How could I be allergic to this stuff? That doesn't make sense to me. And when I was talking about, all of this other, none of this stuff made sense to me. When I was talking about getting a sponsor, I hesitated for almost a week to get a sponsor because I thought I was going to have to pay somebody to sponsor me. And so, I didn't do anything for almost a week. And finally, when I found out I didn't have to pay somebody, I got 2. And I needed both of them because they both helped me immensely. And so what happened was I got these 2 guys and they started working with me immediately. Excuse me. At first, I couldn't even remember the Lord's Prayer. I couldn't wait to get to my second meeting. And I got to my second meeting, and I don't know if you folks believe in angels or not. This was my angel because I came in thinking I was an agnostic. Personally, I believe we're all agnostics. And you might disagree with me, and that's fine. But I'll tell you what an agnostic simply means, that we are without knowledge. And the reason I say that we're all agnostic is this. If we had the knowledge prior to coming into Alcoholics Anonymous, we wouldn't need the knowledge that AA provides us. We had to come into Alcoholics Anonymous to get the knowledge that we needed in order to stop drinking. When I was living in upstate New York, I knew a friend. I had a friend, there was a friend of the family named Father S., a Catholic priest. I used to drink elbow to elbow with him in my ex-wife's uncle's bar in a cellar. We were pouring down Manhattan. I went back upstate New York after I got into AA, and I walked into this room, and there's Father S. And Father, he said, no, my name is Bob. Father S. needed to come into Alcoholics Anonymous to find that power. He didn't find it in the Catholic Church. So anyway, I walk into my second meeting on May 4th, 1992, and here's this woman named Pam. I had never seen her before, obviously, and I never saw her again after that day. But she says, is there anybody new? And I raised my hand up and I said, yeah, this is my second meeting. I came in yesterday. She says, okay, it was a step meeting. We immediately went back to step 1. She says, we're going back to step 1. They read step 1 that day. She talked about it for a few minutes and then also talked a little bit about step 2. And what she had to say that day opened my mind, opened my eyes, opened me up a little bit to the power of God. And what she simply had to say that day was this, that God's love is kind of like a radio signal. It's in the air all around us, but we can't see it. And all we have to do is tune into it. And I just sat there, and it just hit me like a shot in the solar plexus. It was like, wow, that's all I need to do is tune into it. That's it. And for an agnostic guy like me who thought that God was somewhere up there laughing at us as we screwed the world up but didn't want to do anything to do with us, that was amazing. That was awesome. that was such an eye-opener for me. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And I went through, I can't tell you how many months of not knowing what was going on in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because when I came in back then, I don't know what it's like where you guys are, but when I came in, things weren't like they are today. I was hearing a lot of stuff like people theorizing of what they needed to do or what they did or what they had to do, not knowing anything really. It's, I went to a big book meeting and people were, well, when I did the 4th step, we wrote down my life story, or we did the Texas chainsaw, or it was all this other stuff. And people were just theorizing about what they needed to do. And nobody knew exactly what was supposed to be done. And I don't know. I don't know if it was a stroke of genius or what, or no, it wasn't. It was God's love. It was God's love for me. I am such a blessed man. I am so blessed. God has been so good to me that my first sponsor was a gentleman named Wendell. And this guy, every once in a while, would just raise his hand and say, well, when I went to this weekend seminar, and then he would start talking about what he learned there. And I had no idea what he was talking about. So at about 9 months, I was ready to do a 4th step. And I talked to Wendell about it. And Wendell said, let me give you some tapes to listen to. Back then, CDs were just coming into existence. They'd been there for a while. But when Wendell had gone to this big book seminar, he had some some tapes, cassette tapes to listen to. He gave them to me to listen to. And they were of the original Joe and Charlie. And I listened to these tapes. And the best analogy I can give is that for 9 months, I had been listening to these people in AA talking about what they were talking about. And I didn't know good information from bad information. When you're new, you don't know what's, you hear people talking about gratitude lists and HALT and all this other stuff. Does anybody find HALT in the big book? Is that good AA information? I don't know. Anybody here drink when they on a full stomach? Anybody here drink when they were not angry? When they were very calm? Anybody drink when they were not lonely? Anybody drink when they were well rested? Is HALT good information or not? So anyway, I listened to these Joe and Charlie tapes. And all of a sudden, the best analogy I can use, it was like I had been walking in the dark for these 9 months, not knowing what was good information and what wasn't. And all of a sudden, it's like somebody had turned the light on, and I wasn't bumping into furniture anymore. I knew when to work the steps, how to work the steps, who to work the steps with, what I was doing, what I could expect by working these steps. And this really opened my eyes to what Alcoholics Anonymous was all about. It was so great. You new people, I would strongly recommend listening to Joe and Charlie or some other CDs, somebody who can guide you through this. The instructions for working this program are right in the big book. When the big book was written, published on April 11th, 1939. If you were living in Cleveland, Akron, or New York City, or a couple smaller places, you had access to AA meetings in its early days. But if you were out in Washington or Florida, California, Arkansas, you didn't have access to Alcoholics Anonymous. You might have heard of this newfound fledgling society called AA, and you would write into the Alcoholic Foundation, which I believe was in Newark at the time. It wasn't even in New York City. And you would say, help me, please help me. I'm an alcoholic and I don't know what to do. I'm ready to blow my freaking brains out. And they would send you a copy of this newly published book, and they would tell you, read the book. Follow the instructions in the book. If you have any questions, call us or write us. We'd be happy to answer those questions. But you didn't have meetings to go to. You didn't have a sponsor. You were expected to read the book, follow the instructions, and get sober on your own and then carry the message to another alcoholic. Thank God I didn't have to do that. I don't know what would have happened, but it sure as hell would have been difficult. My God, it's amazing that these guys were able to get sober and carry the message to others under those conditions. Wow. Wow. So anyway, what we have in the doctor's opinion is so important to me. When they're starting to talk about the allergy, when they're talking about the physical craving and the physical craving, when they're starting to talk about that allergy, I'm saying, I'm not craving alcohol. I don't have that allergy. Joe and Charlie explained that to me. The physical craving. When I put alcohol in my body, I start to crave more. And I never understood that. I never understood that I had that physical craving and what I will call normal people. Now, don't ask me about normal people. When I use that meaning non-alcoholic people, I will never, I don't know normal. I don't know normal. I never will know normal. So I'm just using that in the context of non-alcoholic people. Normal people do not experience the physical craving. Only alcoholics experience the physical craving. The obsession for alcohol, that I will think about drinking. I will think about what I'm going to drink, what I'm going to drink, who I'm going to drink with, how can I afford drinking, what did I drink last night, who did I drink with last night. A friend of mine says, only an alcoholic will have a drink in front of him and start to think about the next drink that he's going to have. Normal people, you ask a normal person when they had their last drink, they'll say, I don't know. I don't think about that stuff. Any one of you on this Hollywood Squares thing, when did you have your last drink? Oh, I know. I just told you I had mine on May 2nd, 1992. Every one of you know when you had your last drink. You ask a normal person when they're going to have their next drink. I don't know. They don't think about it. They don't think about this stuff because they're normal. We are abnormal. We have this obsession. And this is what differentiates the normal from the abnormal. We have the physical craving. We have the obsession. Our big book says if you have one, you are probably. And they're trying to, Bill being the primary author of the big book, tries to soften the blow a little bit, tries to make it easy for us so that, we don't hurt our feelings any. Says if we have one of them. Well, I don't know about any of you. I've got both of them. So when I read that, and I said, yeah, John, you have both the physical craving and the mental obsession. You're an alcoholic, John. And coming in off the streets, I didn't know that. I didn't know that I was an alcoholic. That's how, I don't know, oblivious, hard-headed. I don't even call it denial. I wasn't trying to deny that I was an alcoholic. I just didn't even realize it. So anyway, I read that and I said, geez, John, you're an alcoholic. Now I'm faced with two options. And there's mentioned right on page 25, down towards the bottom of the page. I've got two options. I can either go on to the bitter end, drinking, or I can pick, or I can, take the solution. What's my choice? That's it. There's no plan C. I can go on to the bitter end, blotting out that miserable experience, or I can take the other choice and opt for the solution. Thank God that we have a solution. And then, chapter 2, we have a solution. There is a solution. Thank God that we have a solution. I'll tell you something. I can't say it enough. This program is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I've got 5 kids. I've got I've got so many great things. God, like I said, God has been good to me, very good to me. But I would have nothing without this program. It's all gone without this program. Because AA is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And so once this fog started to clear and I could study the big book, I realized that that is what I need to do if I want to get sober, stay sober. I came to this program and you folks told me. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart that each and every one of you have been a teacher for me. That I need to study the book if I want to get sober and stay sober. You folks told me, you gave me instructions on how to get sober. Hit your knees and pray in the morning. Hit your knees and pray at night. Get to a meeting. Work with other alcoholics. Do all of these things. Study the book. I'm finding out deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. But it's blocked by calamity, pomp, and worship of other things. Calamity is, I've created that calamity. I've created it in my life. And calamity is just another word for chaos. And I created that chaos since I was a little kid. I already explained that to you how I did that. Pomp is just another word for ego. And worship of other things, what are we talking about? Worship of other things. You know, do we ever think of that when we read that paragraph, or do we just skip over it and not give it any thought at all? So worship, what are we talking about? Worship of other things. Well, if we just think about it a little bit, we're just talking about placing other things ahead of God. Well, did I put alcohol in front of God? Yeah, I did. Did I put other substances in front of God? When I'm working, when I'm chasing money, when I'm chasing prestige, am I putting those things ahead of God? You see, I found out in this program that I need to place God first. And the big book tells me that spirituality has to come before money. Spirituality has to come before anything. Job or no job, wife or no wife. Throughout the book, it's telling me that I have to have this relationship with God. And that's why step 2 and step 3 come at the beginning of the 12 steps. So that I have this great relationship with God, so that the foundation of my recovery, when I have that good relationship with God, that I can trust God in step 3, turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him. Then immediately after that, I get up off my knees after the 3rd step prayer and start to take that inventory and take a look at myself. For the first time in my life, I'm taking a look at myself because I'm always blaming everybody else for my problems. And for the first time in my life, I'm taking a look at myself and saying, my God, John, it's you. You're the one that's creating all these problems. Not everybody else, not your wife, not your father, you, John, you. And I'm taking that to my sponsor in step 5. And we're taking a look at the character defects. The instructions for 4 are right there in the big book on page, well, the outline, the first 3 columns are right there on 65. But the instructions are there on 64 through 69. I don't know, somewhere around there. But that's, it's right in there. We don't need to go to a Texas chainsaw or write, we don't need to write our life story. The instructions for working with the 4 step are right there in the big book. That's what we need to do. So the writing is right there, and it's all about prayer and forgiveness. We need to be thorough and honest. And we come to realize that they, like ourselves, are sick. Like ourselves. I was a sick person. I still am, but I'm much better off than I was because I have worked this program. I have worked the 12 steps. You see, I came to realize in sitting down talking to my sponsor in step 5, he pointed this out to me, that I have come to realize that It's all about forgiveness. I have to pray that God can forgive me, that God can forgive the others in my fourth step. Those that I have harmed, those that have harmed me. That I pray to God that I can forgive the others. I pray to God that others can forgive me. And I can pray to God that I can forgive myself and accept myself as I am. It is all about forgiveness. And thank God for this process. And then when I'm done with that, I can move on to step 6. I've just taken a look at myself. I've taken a look at how I have destroyed my life and the life of my loved ones and others that I've come to contact with. And now I've come to this, in hindsight, of course, all of this is in hindsight. I take a look at myself and I say, geez, John, I'm at a fork in the road. Do I want to continue devastating the lives of others in your own life? Or do I want to take the path down peace of mind, happiness, and serenity that this program and you people have promised me? Which way do I want to go? You would think that would be a simple decision. And step 6 is nothing more than a simple decision. And of course we know which way we want to go. So I make that choice in step 6 and move on to step 7. And I humbly ask God to remove the shortcomings that stand in the way of my usefulness to him. Now I move on to 8. And step 8 is about making the list and praying. And in step 9 was not easy for me. Step 9 was actually more difficult than step 4 and 5. Because now I have to come face to face with some of the people that I've harmed. And I know that some of those people really, really want to do physical harm to me. And this is where I'm, I'm moving outside of AA and I'm moving out to the real world. But do I want to continue in my life looking down at the ground, feeling full of guilt, feel full of anxiety, or do I want to make restitution and feel good about myself? Do I want to feel like a part of the world? Do I want to become the man, the person that God always intended me to be? And again, the instructions are right there in the book. Do I want to follow the instructions in the book? And do I want to expect the results that the first 100 got? And as Joe and Charlie said, the instructions are right there. It's like, Charlie talks about a recipe for strawberry cake. And if somebody gives you that recipe, you bite into a cake and you enjoy that cake. You say, that's the best strawberry cake I ever had. Somebody gives you the recipe and, you take that recipe home and the recipe calls for, say, 3 cups of flour. You say, well, I don't know, I'm going to put 3.5 in, and it calls for 2 cups of sugar. And you say, well, I want to put 2.5 in, and it says, calls for 3 hours of baking at 250 degrees. And you say, now I'm going to put it in for 2 hours at 350. And, you might get strawberry cake, but it's not going to taste like the cake that you got the recipe for. Why would you do that with your alcoholic mind? You bake it like the recipe calls for. Same thing with the big book. Follow the instructions in the book and you will get the results as it calls for. The instructions are right there. So anyway, the step 9, you work the step. I've done it to the best of my ability with the people that I could find. And then we have steps 10, 11, and 12. And step 10 is really nothing more than if I have a problem, say like I've got a problem with, I'm retired now, but if I had a problem with a coworker, I don't wait until nighttime and then take a look at that and say, gee, I had a problem with Joe at 8 o'clock this morning. If I have a problem with Joe at 8 o'clock in the morning, I can take a look at it at 8:01. And after taking a look at it, I might have to call my sponsor and say, I had this problem with Joe and here's what happened. I put it on an inventory, like maybe do an inventory, go across the columns. I call my sponsor and say, this is the problem. And, after doing that inventory, I talk to my sponsor. It's like a mini step 5. And if there's a problem where I had been selfish or self-centered or inconsiderate, I ask God to remove that. And if I had been, I go back to Joe, and maybe by 8:15, I say, Joe, I had been self-centered, selfish, and inconsiderate. What can I do to make that right? And by 8:15, this problem is resolved. I don't have to wait until 10 o'clock at night, go through that whole day irritated with Joe and have him irritated with me. The whole day doesn't have to be ruined. Thank God for things like step 10. In prayer and meditation, the instructions for meditation are right there in the big book. Now, there are additional ways to meditate, West Eastern meditation and all these other things, and they're great. But meditation as called for in the big book are right there upon awakening. We do the big book meditation, and it's complemented by prayer. Meditation, as Bill Wilson saw it, this is according to a dictionary in the early 20th century, meant that we planned. So upon awakening, we plan the day. And if we're a bit confused, we pray. And so upon awakening, we plan the day and we also pray. And if you read the big book and the 12 and 12 with that in mind, it makes a whole lot more sense. So then we have step 12. Step 12, where do I even start? You can spend a whole hour just talking about step 12. Working with others. How many times is working with others mentioned in the big book? It is our lifeline. It's not a chore. It's not a job. It's the beauty of this program. The beauty of this program is me watching a newcomer walk through the doors with that blank, hollow stare, the stooped shoulders, the head down, the feet shuffling, and me walking up to him and saying, hi, my name is John Frazier. I'm an alcoholic. Are you new? Come on over. The coffee is over here. Here's the donuts. Here are the cookies. Come on, have a seat with me. Here's my phone number. I know how you feel. The beauty of this program is that nobody else has what we have. People used to say to me when I first came in, alcoholism is a gift. And I would look at them and I'd think, I wouldn't say it. I didn't have the nerve to say it. But I would think, a gift? What are you talking about? What other gifts do you have? Cancer? The plague? Come on, a gift. But today I realize what they're saying because nobody else has what we have. Doctors, lawyers, psychologists, psychiatrists, priests, rabbis, ministers, none of these people have this gift. Nobody else can look at that newcomer, look him in the eye or her in the eye and say, I know how you feel. Because they're not alcoholics. They don't know how we feel. We have that gift. It's a gift, ladies and gentlemen. It's a gift. Because we know how that person feels. Better yet, not only do we know how that person feels, we can look that person in the eye and say, come in, sit down, let me help you because I know a way out. And nobody else knows the way out. They might have read about it in a book, but they haven't experienced it. We have. And that is a gift. And I hope you're using that gift because the gift is me looking that person in the eye and saying and seeing, wow, the light has come on. Life has come back to that person. That is beautiful. I've been in the delivery room to watch 3 of my children born. And it's like watching a person being reborn, and that is a gift. It says so right in the big book. We have been reborn, and these people are reborn. Hope has been restored. What a beautiful gift we have. I hope you're using it. Another part of step 12 is this: practicing these principles in all our affairs. Now that's, I don't know about you. I try to practice these principles in all my affairs. I fail. I'm not perfect. But we have the opportunity to practice these principles in all our affairs. We have the opportunity to bring them into our homes. So here's another 4 or 5 hours with our partners, our spouses, or whatever relationships we might be in. So here's 4 or 5 hours of happiness that we may have. We can bring them into our jobs if we're employed. Hopefully we're lucky enough to be employed. There's 8 hours of joy and happiness and serenity we might have. We have the opportunity when we're driving down the road, instead of flipping people off, letting them in, smiling maybe, if we choose to. There's another half hour or an hour a day that we might have. Saying hello to the cashier at the grocery store. How are you doing? Hey, it's a pandemic going on. Stay safe. Here's another 10, 15 minutes that you have. What this program is saying, what the 12th step is saying, is that we have the opportunity to be happy, joyous, free, and serene 24 hours a day if we want to, if we choose to. Do you want to? Or do you want to be that miserable person like me who wanted to blow his brains out? What choice do you want to make? Who do you want to be? Thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I wish I could be perfect at this. I'm not. But thank God that I have the opportunity. And thank God that I have the opportunity to take an inventory every night and say, okay, John, here's an area of your life where you can make some improvement. And the next day I still, hopefully I'm improving. Hopefully I am. I'll never reach perfection. And I know I have many, many, many areas to improve. And let me say one more thing. I hope you're studying the traditions, because to me the traditions are at least as important, if not more important, than the steps. And you might think that that is blasphemy. What do you mean more important than the steps? Well, let me say this. If you are not learning and practicing the traditions, AA is not going to last. AA will not be here much longer if you don't practice the traditions. And I'll tell you right now, that is a weakness of mine, but I am trying to improve on the traditions all of the time. I go to 1 or 2 tradition meetings a week because I know that the traditions are that important, especially tradition 1, which tells me that AA is more important than my personal recovery. Whoa! Yeah. Because, again, AA needs to live and last, or else I have no place to go. If AA does not survive, where are you going to go? You're going to go back to a psychologist's couch? You're going to go back to church? You're going to try to make it on your own? How do those things work for you, folks? AA needs to last. AA needs to work. And it's our responsibility to make it last and make it work. And I hope you're doing your part. Glenn, thank you for this opportunity. I hope I brought somebody a message. And that's what I've got for today. Thank you so much.